Imagine holding in your hand a small copper coin struck nearly 90 years ago, a coin that passed through the Great Depression, a coin that was used when Franklin D. Roosevelt was president, a coin that saw America rising from hardship into a new era of industry power and resilience. This is the 1936 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a simple 1-cent piece that carries with it layers of history, politics, economics, art, and human stories. Today, we are going to take a long, deep dive into this coin, a professional, detailed history that will carry us through the very reasons why this coin was struck, how it was designed, what its legacy is, and why collectors even now search for it with passion and reverence. The wheat penny had already become a symbol of modern American coinage when the United States Mint introduced it in 1909 to celebrate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1936, it had been circulating for nearly 3 decades, and Americans had grown accustomed to seeing the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the 2 wheat stalks on the reverse. Yet the 1936 issue stands at a turning point in American history. To understand why, we need to journey back to the conditions of the mid-1930s, a time when America was fighting to emerge from the Great Depression. Unemployment was high, farms were struggling, industry was trying to restart, and the New Deal programs were reshaping the landscape of American society. The United States Mint in 1936 was busier than it had been in the early 1930s, during the worst Depression years when coin demand had collapsed as commerce slowed. But by 1936, economic recovery programs had started to restore business activity and coinage needs surged once again. This was the environment in which the 1936 wheat penny was produced at 3 different mints: the main Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. Each of these facilities played a critical role in making sure coins reached every corner of the nation. And as we examine their production totals, we find fascinating stories. Philadelphia struck over 309 million pieces, Denver produced nearly 41 million, and San Francisco added more than 29 million in the total mintage for 1936, one of the largest of the decadano. The year 1936 is also notable because it was one of the first years when proof coins returned to American numismatics. Proofs are special coins struck with extra care, polished dies, and mirror-like finishes, and they were sold to collectors in limited numbers. After a long pause since 1916, the Mint resumed proof coinage in 1936, and among them was the 1936 proof Lincoln cent. This makes the year even more historic because the proof sets of 1936 are treasured today as the rebirth of modern proof coinage. The proof 1936 wheat penny in particular is one of the most desirable coins a collector can acquire because it represents both artistry and scarcity. The artistry of the wheat penny itself had not changed since its introduction in 1909. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, remained the longest-running portrait in American coinage history, and the reverse, with its simple wheat stalks symbolizing American agriculture, continued to remind citizens of the nation's roots and farming communities. But by 1936, Brenner's design had become more than just art. It was an icon. It symbolized stability in uncertain times. Lincoln's steady gaze reminded Americans of endurance, unity, and sacrifice. The coin was not just money. It was a message carried in every pocket. If we examine the composition of the coin, we see that it was struck in bronze, consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This traditional alloy gave the coin its rich reddish appearance, though circulation would quickly darken its color. Collectors today prize examples that still retain their original red luster. Finding a fully red 1936 penny untouched by time is considered a gem of the hobby and can fetch significant prices in auctions, particularly in the highest mint state grades. The 1936 wheat penny also stands out because it exists in several varieties that intrigue collectors. For example, the 1936 double die obverse is one of the most famous varieties from this year, where extra impressions of the design can be seen on the date and lettering due to a misalignment during the die making process. These double die cents are scarce and highly valuable, commanding prices that can turn a simple 1-cent piece into a treasure worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on condition. This variety adds a layer of mystery and excitement to the 1936 series, because it reminds us that, even with modern machinery, mistakes could still happen, and those mistakes became prizes for future generations. But beyond the technical details of mintages, alloys, designs, and varieties, the 1936 wheat penny represents something larger. It represents the spirit of a nation. Recovering from hard times, people used these pennies to buy bread, newspapers, coffee, and transit fares. Children saved them in piggy banks and coin purses. Mothers counted them carefully for groceries, and fathers held them tightly during tough paydays. Each coin carried the weight of survival dreams and small victories in an America determined to rise once more. In 1936, Jesse Owens was winning Olympic gold in Berlin, defying Nazi ideology. Franklin Roosevelt was running for re-election with his New Deal message, and the Dust Bowl was still ravaging parts of the Midwest. Through it all, the humble wheat penny circulated daily, silently witnessing the struggles and triumphs of ordinary people. Collectors today look back at the 1936 penny not just as a numismatic item, but as a time capsule of that pivotal year. The proof coins show us the artistry and care of the mint. The regular circulation strikes show us the demand for commerce, and the varieties show us the unpredictability of minting technology. Together, they paint a full picture of why this coin is remembered, and why entire books and countless studies have been written about wheat pennies and their enduring place in history. So, when you hold a 1936 Lincoln wheat penny, you are not just holding copper, you are holding the echoes of the Depression, the hopes of recovery, the steady leadership of Lincoln's image, the artistry of Victor David Brenner, and the story of America in transition from hardship to hope, from scarcity to progress, from doubt to determination. That is why this coin deserves more than just a glance. It deserves the kind of deep exploration that numismatists, historians, and collectors have pursued for decades, and why we can spend hours unfolding its story in every detail.